Now moving over to the Big 12 championship game. This game will be 12 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock local. They're in Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington to be exact. Iowa State takes on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Arizona State about a 2.5-point favorite. Total right around 51. This game will be on ABC with Joe Tessitore and Jesse Palmer and Katie George on the call. It's been 112 years since Iowa State last won a conference championship. Now, for those of you that are not great with your presidents, neither am I, but that was in the heart of the Taft administration. Would not have known that or figured that out. If you gave me 15 guesses, I probably wouldn't have gotten that one right. But the Cyclones, they won back-to-back Missouri Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Association titles in 1911 and 1912. Since that time, they have yet to win a conference championship. They did, however, make the Big 12 title game in COVID of 2020, but they fell to Oklahoma that year. And Arizona State, there's not a lot of teams in the country that have been playing better down the stretch than the Sun Devils. They have a 5-game win streak. The good news is Cyclones have a little win streak going themselves. 3-game heater of their own. Arizona State has won 17 conference championships in their program history, but the last one was in 2007. They were the co-champs of the Pac-10. That's right, the Pac-10, and they have not won an outright conference title since 1996. So history has to give here in one direction or the other, and I love it too. I love when teams are not used to this thin air and they have to play against each other for the belt. Let's go to question number 1. How the heck did this turnaround happen for Arizona State? Right? Like, how did this happen? To go from 3-9 to 10-2 with some of the same players, not a ton of the same players, but some of the same players. I mean, they had Cam Skattebo last year, but he ran for 780 yards. The quarterback last year in the quarterback situation, because it was more than one, they went 8-14 touchdown interception ratio. So they really didn't have a whole lot of things going for them offensively last year. Now, they found a trio of playmakers this season. Sam Leavitt, yeah, he did miss a game earlier, but he has shined since transferring over from Michigan State. 21-5 in the touchdown interception ratio. That's obviously a significant step up from what the Sun Devils had at the quarterback spot last year. He also has been pretty good on the ground. He can keep you honest with his legs. He's got 350 rush yards. So he's got 2,800 total yards. And Cam Skattebo, as a result of Leavitt taking a little pressure off of him, he's elevated to the next level. There's been a bunch of additions via the portal, and Arizona State has created a culture of competitiveness and toughness. It's been a lot of fun to watch. Kenny Dillingham should be on everyone's Coach of the Year ballot. Whether he's 1, 2, or 3 doesn't necessarily matter, but he better be in one of those 3 spots. There's a lot of great candidates this year, but I'm not sure there's been a better job done by any coach in college football than Kenny Dillingham. Look, Curt Cignetti, Deion Sanders, there's a bunch, right? A ton. Barry Odom. But I'll tell you what, man, Dillingham, he might get my vote when I turn it in here at some point in the very near future. Question number 2. How much does Jordan Tyson's injury affect Arizona State? Now, Arizona State really has 2 significant weapons that they rely heavily on. You got Cam Skattebo, who we've already talked about, and Jordan Tyson, who has been announced as out indefinitely as of Monday of this week. That duo, though, they account for 53% of the team's touches, 59% of the team's scrimmage yards, and 62% of the team's touchdowns. Now, Tyson has been targeted on more than 32% of his routes this year. That's the 5th highest target share amongst Power 4 players. He's got 1,100 yards. They are 636 more than the next closest Sun Devil, which ironically enough is Cam Skattebo. The good news is when you look at how Iowa State has defended teams this year, they're really good in the back end defending the throw. They haven't been quite as good defending the run, which takes us to question number 3. Can Iowa State slow down Cam Skattebo? Now, Skattebo has been one of the best backs in America. 1,400 yards, thereabouts, 17 touchdowns. He's 5th among FBS backs this year with 900-plus yards after contact. He's been outstanding, okay? This guy is really fun to watch. If you haven't seen him, and this is your first opportunity, you will be delighted when you tune in, but it's not all about Cam Skattebo. I just referenced, yes, he's among the top in college football after contact, but his offensive line is a really veteran group as well. 129 combined career starts. They average 320 yards across the front. Like, this is a group that can push you off the ball. And they do a really nice job in scheming up certain runs that get him in space. Now, he's really good outside the tackles. They're going to get him out in the open field. He also is going to create a lot of opportunities through the air as well. He's the second best running back in the country in terms of receiving production per game. Desmond Reed at Pitt is number 1. Skattebo is number 2. He is 4th, however, when it comes to overall receiving yards by running backs. Iowa State has not been good against the run this year. Their structure defensively invites teams to try to run the football. Iowa State has, for a long time, had some success in the front seven, but this year has not been that year. They give up about 5.5 yards a carry, and that'll be a problem against an elite running game like this. Question 4, can Iowa State's passing game attack the Sun Devils? Rocco Beck has been outstanding this year, and he does so many things for Iowa State, I might add. Now, he'll run it, he'll throw it, he'll put his shoulder down, get the hard yardage. You can tell that Rocco Beck was raised in a football household. His dad, Anthony Beck, coaches in the UFL, but also played tight end in the NFL for a really long time. You can tell it means a lot to him. He's hyper competitive. And as a result, he has Iowa State within striking distance of their first conference championship in 112 years. Beck has thrown for over 3,000 yards, hasn't thrown a ton of interceptions, but he is not afraid to take chances with the football. He's a bit of a daredevil. He's definitely a fun player to watch, a competitive player to watch, but he will take chances, and he's going to need to be opportunistic in this game because Arizona State's pretty good with their eyes defensively. He's got a great tandem of receivers. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, they really carry the load for the Cyclones in the receiving game. They have combined to go for nearly 2,100 receiving yards and 15 touchdowns this season. In Iowa State, you probably wouldn't have guessed this. You probably would have thought, oh, well, it's Ole Miss, or it'd be one of those high-flying offenses. No, Iowa State is the only team in the FBS this season with multiple 1,000-yard receivers. Probably wouldn't have guessed that. I know I probably wouldn't have in the preseason, but now after watching them this year, it's not surprising to see both Higgins and Noel do a great job with that offense. But one thing that's going to be interesting is that I do think that red zone could be a huge factor here, because Iowa State is going to be going against one of the worst red zone defenses in the country. Arizona State is 117th in defensive touchdown efficiency in the red zone. But when you look at what Arizona State has, they can score. So I think Iowa State, when they get down there, they'll be able to punch it in. But I also think Arizona State will get their points as well. And then question 5, will either team find a pass rush? Now, both defenses are pretty solid. You look at them like yards per play, points, yards per game, all this stuff. Like, they're pretty solid. They're not spectacular, but they're top 30, top 35 groups. But there is one area where they are both very human, and that's with their pass rush. Arizona State hasn't had it at all season. They're 109th in pressure generated on the opposing quarterback. It's around 30%. Iowa State is 95th in pressure applied to the opposing quarterback. They're about 31%. So in the event in which one team jumps up, there's really no reason to believe that the trailing team can't climb back in the game, because they're going to have time to stand back there in the pocket and dissect the opposing defense, because the pass rush just doesn't exist for either of these two teams. Trends in the game: Arizona State 7-0 as a favorite this season. That's the best record by any team in a season since 2012. Iowa State, the under is 9-1-1 in December and January games involving Iowa State since 2012. I'm actually bucking the second trend. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, and I'm taking Arizona State. I think they're the hotter team, and I'll trust the team that can run the football like Arizona State can likely run the football.